we don't need roads.
Mr. Howard, an honor to see you again, sir. How are you?
Likewise, I'm well. Thank you. Good to see you.
Can I ask I've never asked this before in an interview. Can I ask where you're at right now? Is this your office?
My office at Imagine Entertainment in LA.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I'm in my apartment in Chicago. If you ever want to come through, I have a very comfortable fold-out couch. You have a great history here, sir.
I can see.
I'm going to jump into this because I have 1,000 questions for you, and I genuinely love this film and think it's one of your best. So congratulations on it. I know it seems incredibly obvious to make connections between Apollo 13 and 13 Lives, but I am curious, as both a filmmaker and a storyteller, what is the most important lesson you learned on Apollo 13 that proved most valuable when crafting this film?
One huge one, and that was that audiences could be very much entertained by the details. The more granular you get about process, in a way, the more suspenseful and even strangely kind of emotional the viewing experience can be for audiences. So I lean very heavily on that with 13 Lives for sure.
Well, you mentioned the suspense because I want to talk about when you think about this film and Apollo 13 and Frost Nixon, you've showed such an incredible talent in creating drama, even though we already know the end to the story. So what is the secret to making us forget that we already know that it's all going to work out fine and still being able to craft that tension in stories like this?
Well, thanks. I again, this is something that I learned, back with Apollo 13, and I've carried it through, which is the more an audience can begin to connect with the characters involved. And in this case with 13 Lives, it was cross-cultural and a lot of characters. And yet I felt that the more people relate to what everyone's going through, the more empathy they feel. So the suspense isn't necessarily about will they live or die. It's how will they feel about it, because you can take a hit emotionally as a human being that can be as painful and significant as an injury, physical injury, or even loss of life. So it's to build those opportunities and understand it. And I felt the more I researched 13 Lives and the more I understood the level of volunteerism involved, these people didn't even have to be there. They didn't know that it was going to work out. They were pretty sure it wasn't going to work out and that they were going to be participating in a huge heartbreak. Well, there's an unbelievable nobility in that and a lot of drama. And I really wanted to convey that. I respected it so much.
And you conveyed it perfectly. But I'm curious, when crafting true stories, in some cases, you've had the real subjects around to be able to ask questions of, to learn from. In a lot of cases, you did not. So I'm curious whether or not the real subjects being around affects your experience when telling a true story.
Well, it's certainly helpful. And in this case, we had quite a few people. And of course, there were a lot of individuals involved. So we not only got their firsthand perspective on the entire event, but we also could track kind of on an emotional level what it felt like to be there. And then I could, project that onto other characters. The degree of difficulty on this was much higher than I kind of guessed it was going to be going into it. I loved the story. I was thrilled to have the opportunity to do it. I thought I could bring a lot of my filmmaking experiences, including in recent years, documentaries, to the process. I was grateful for all those experiences in trying to tackle the film, but between trying to get the cultural authenticity and really get the details and the suspense around the diving in an authentic way, it was involved. But I was thrilled to get to do it, and a great bunch of collaborators in front of and behind the camera, remarkable people, just doing their very best work.
Well, my dog is a massive fan, if you can't hear her barking for you. I feel like we've seen this trend over the past few years of really great directors telling their own story through film. We've seen Spielberg do it, Kenneth Branagh, Alfonso Cuarón, James Gray. Is that something you'd ever be interested in doing, telling your own sort of autobiographical story through film?
My brother and I published a book last year called The Boys.
I read that. It was fantastic.
Hollywood and family. And people have asked us if we think there's a television show or a movie in it. So far, we don't. We're blessed, not all that much conflict, nothing, sort of hugely dramatic. Interesting, specific, relatable, sure, but so far we haven't identified something that we said, well, that's a story that needs to be fleshed out and told. But we haven't thought about it too much, to be honest.
Well, if you need to frame it as a junket interview and I'm interviewing you, and then every question I ask just flashes you back to a different period of, I got you. I'll work for scale. I'll work for scale. I'll cut you loose on this. Journalists love a good anniversary because it gives us the excuse to bring up something. 20th anniversary of you taking home Best Picture and Best Director. Two of the most deserved Oscars I've seen since I've started watching the Oscars.
Thank you.
That moment, I'm sort of curious as to. I'm imagining I'm not the first person bringing it up to you. Are you allowing yourself to relive that moment if only for a moment?
Well, I didn't know it was the anniversary. I hadn't thought about that, but it's not. But that's cool, and makes me want to be ambitious and find another project that will get us in the same position. But it was a big thrill. It meant a lot to our partnership, Brian Grazer and I, as friends and partners. And it was great to be a part of sort of the film history or the legacy in that way. Of course, it's not ever an apples to apples thing. Really handing out awards around films and artistic achievements is it has to be more of just something you recognize as a kind of a celebration, and not to be taken too seriously, but nonetheless, great to be in the history books with a film I was really proud of. And I still, I watch the Oscars every single year, and I also appreciate film festivals now more than I ever did.
This one was a film festival film.
Yes, but the reason is that with all the platforms, all the ways to see films, all the ways, films and television shows are being distributed, it's ever more important to have these things like awards programs, like film festivals or television festivals, music festivals, to just help guide us, the audience, to sort of to know, so we need those curators to just say, hey, by the way, this one was particularly interesting and played really well to this audience in, Venice or Telluride or wherever.
Well, Mr. Howard, if you can't tell, I'm such a fan of yours, sir. Our first interview was Frost Nixon many years ago, and you've been kind to me since I was a kid, and you've kind to me all the way through. And I love you.
You haven't changed.
I appreciate neither of you. Good to see you again, sir. Take care.
Bye.
Where we're going, we don't need roads.